What's going on, guys? In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to composite your Blender renders within Davinci Resolve and how to recreate your render passes within Davinci Resolve and Fusion. So without further ado, please let's get started. So today we're going to be recreating our render passes within Davinci Resolve and Fusion. So we'll have this scene, the Spider-Man scene. On the left is the original, on the right is the composited. We'll probably do this one here. Again, on the right is the composite, on the left is the original. I can even open up so I can show you. So we're going to be basically recompositing our render passes and recreating our beauty passes within Davinci Resolve and Fusion. This is something I wanted to do for a very long time, but it was difficult for me to find anything on this specific topic because there's things for like Cinema 4D and Octane and V-Ray, but not necessarily for Blender within Fusion. So we'll probably be doing it for 3 different scenes. One being the Spider-Man scene, one being this scene that I've created for the Voyager, and probably one more. Reason being is because they're all going to have different passes. So as you can see, this one doesn't have an emission, this one has an emission, and we'll do another one with emission and volume, just so you know which render passes to connect and how to work with those. So there's a few things in order to get this set up and get this started. Of course, when you're in Blender, you're going to need to set up your render passes. So to do that, go to the right hand side here and select this view layer properties, and then select all the render passes that are relevant to your scene. So if there is emissions, then pick emissions. By default, you probably want all of the light passes. So that's the diffuse, the glossy, and the transmission. And you might need the environment if you have, for example, a HDR in the background. If you're not sure about which render passes to use, then pick all of them, but you can actually see which render passes are relevant for your scene. If you click right hand side here next to the rendered view, you can see it says render passes, and you can actually click onto it to see what your render pass will look like, which is interesting. Me by default, I know generally I tend to pick pretty much all of them because it's just easier that way. So yeah, set up your render passes, pick which render passes you want, and then render the image. And once that's done, save the image as an EXR file. So when the render is complete, image, save as, and then save it as a multi-layer EXR. This is very important. Save it as a open EXR multi-layer, okay? And then open up Davinci Resolve, and yeah, I'll show you the next steps. Okay, so once you're in Davinci Resolve and you open a new timeline, what you might want to do is go to the left hand side, find the effects library, go to effects, find where it says Fusion Composition, drag that into your timeline. This just makes things a lot easier for you. Then navigate to the bottom and click onto Fusion. Okay, straight away you'll see that there is a media out tab. But before we start working with our render and our render passes, there's one thing which is going to speed up your workflow exponentially, and that's downloading Reactor. So I'm going to leave the link in the description to basically this site, which enables you to download Reactor. Essentially what Reactor is basically like, it's like a bunch of plugins ready for Fusion. So think of it like the add-ons that come within Blender, except this one you're going to need to download. And the reason why this is important is because it's going to speed up your EXR workflow and your multi-pass workflow exponentially. So I'll leave in the description this link. Essentially all you need to do is download the script. After you've downloaded it, you're going to need to drag the Lua file into your composition, so right here into the nodes. It's going to bring up this window, and all you need to do is click install and launch and follow the instructions. It's going to be that simple. I'll probably leave another video in the description showing you like step by step, but you need to install Reactor because it's going to be so much faster for the workflow. Trust me, this is like as game changing as Node Wrangler, kind of. So you know how vital Node Wrangler is, Blender users, my friends, fellow family and community. Download Reactor, install it, and then come back. You're going to need to restart Fusion anyway, so I'll wait for you. I'll see you when you're back. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you have installed Reactor and you are here. Perfect. Welcome to Fusion. We are about to get started. So the first thing I really like to do is I like to have my tiles shown. So by default, it might look rectangle, but I like to have it looking square with a full preview. So I do right click, I go to force all tile pictures. I also like to arrange tools, go to arrange tools, right click, arrange tools, go to, and it just makes it easier to move around things. Okay, so let's get started. In order to get your EXR into Fusion, usually I used to go to my folder and simply just drag it in. But as you can see, it brings in as a media in and not necessarily EXR, so that doesn't work for EXR files. What you need to do is press Control and space which is like Shift A for Blender. So Control and Space, and this is going to bring up your select tool. It's going to have all of the tools that you can use. What you're going to need to do is type in Loader, and this is going to bring up a window where you can pick which EXR that you want. So navigate towards the EXR files that you have, and then click onto the one that you want. So again, we're going to be doing 3 EXRs today. The first one we're going to be doing is the Spider-Man scene. We're going to click Open, and then you can press 1 on your keyboard, or you can drag this node onto this window on the left hand side. And as you can see, it will show your image. So if you press 1 and drag it to this window, it will show your image. If you press 2 or drag it to this window, it will show your image. So you can have previews on different windows. If you can only see one window, then click this icon here and you'll be able to see 2 windows. Now something you're going to notice immediately is it does look a little bit dark, and that's because the color space. I'm not going to go into color space transforms, linearity, all of that sort of thing, but I'm just going to show you how to fix it temporarily, because at the end we're going to export it into sRGB. So what you can do to view it normally is go to the top corner here. You'll see it says LUT. Click onto that, make sure it's selected, then select the drop down menu. Make sure Fusion LUT is selected. Go all the way down to edit. This menu will pop up. Go to color gamma and change it to 2.2. And as you can see, it looks as if it was normally. It looks the same as when you export it, essentially. You're going to do the exact same for this window here on the right hand side. So click onto this window, make sure that the light is selected. Go down to the drop down, click edit. Color space gamma, change it to 2.2 and bang. This just saves us time, because otherwise you probably need to bring like a gamma in, and yeah, we're not going to go into that. Okay, so time to really get started. So how do we composite our scenes within Fusion? How do we recreate our beauty pass? It's quite simple, and I'm going to show you the fast way of doing it and why we needed to download the Lua file Reactor to begin with. So once you've downloaded Reactor, we're actually going to need a plugin from Reactor. So to get the plugin, go to Workspace, Scripts, Reactor, open Reactor. After a bit of time, Reactor should open up. And essentially, make sure you're clicked onto all. What you're going to need to download is Split EXR. So type in EXR in the search menu, click Split EXR, click install. Then it's going to probably ask you to restart Fusion. So restart Fusion and be right back. Okay, so once that's done, I assume you're at this point. If not, just a quick recap. Control spacebar, type in loader, load your EXR file, click onto the LUT, change it to Fusion View LUT, go to edit, change it to 2.2 gamma, do the exact same from this window, and then bang, here we are, back to the step. Okay, so now we're going to load the script, and you can do this 2 ways. You could go to Workspace, Scripts, Split EXR, or you can right click onto your EXR file, Script, Split EXR. So we're going to do it that way because, you know, we're here now. You're then going to get this pop up here. It might be a little bit glitchy, don't worry about that. And it's going to ask you the placement, whether you want it to be horizontal or vertical. I like it to be horizontal. I'm going to leave all of these as is, and I'm going to press OK, and you're going to see exactly what this does. Bang, bang, bang. As you can see, incredible. We now have our render passes right here, and it split all of our render passes for us. If we didn't have this add-on, essentially what we need to do is we need to grab this EXR file that we had loaded in, go to the right hand side here, go down to channels, and then get the RGB channels for every single render pass, copy and paste this as many render passes as we have, and keep doing this process over and over again. So this saves us an incredible amount of time. So as you can see, we have all of our render passes here. Again, to show a specific node onto the scene, all you need to do is press 1 on your keyboard or 2 on your keyboard, and it shows it on 1, the one window on the left hand side, or 2, the right window on the right hand side. So as you can see, we literally have all of our render passes that we've rendered out. By the way, you can use crypto mats, but we're not going to be covering crypto mats in this episode. I'm probably going to leave it in a different video. You may have noticed, however, that the render passes are not in order, which is a huge pain. So us ourselves are going to need to order and set up the render passes. Now you might be wondering, okay, how do we set up the render passes and how do we actually recreate the render passes? Well, I'll show you, don't worry. In fact, on the Blender website, it actually shows you how to recreate the final render and the beauty pass with the render passes that are included in Blender. So diffuse, direct, indirect, you add them together, then you multiply, glossy, direct, indirect, multiply, then you add these two together. Then if you have transmission, then emission, environment, and combines. But as you can see, it doesn't have volume and doesn't have background. So I'm going to show you how to do all of that sort of stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. There's a lot of setup, but it's really worth it. Trust me, guys, it's going to be full force from here on out. So remembering what we just saw, we need to set up the scene. So how we're going to do that? We need all of the diffuse passes and all of the glossy passes. Then we can work with whatever's left. So on the left hand side, I like to have my beauty pass. So it says composite combines. That's going to be your beauty pass. So I'm just going to bring this down and just have this off to the side. So we know that this is the image that we need to recreate. It has all of the render passes in it, right? So this is the beauty pass. Then I try and find all of my diffuse passes. So it says diffuse color. Essentially, any pass I know I'm going to need for this, I'm going to drag down. So diffuse colors on the left hand side here. Do I need any of these? No. We have glossy color. That's fine. Anything else here? Diffuse direct. I'm going to need that here. Diffuse indirect. I'm going to need that here. Environment. I'm going to need that. Glossy indirect. I'm going to need that. It's really annoying that this doesn't do it in order, but it's okay. Here we go. And glossy direct. So I know that these are the render passes that I need to recreate my scene. I do my diffuse passes, my glossy passes, and my environment. There is no emission in the scene, as you can see, so I don't necessarily need an emission scene. If I go to the emission pass, you can see that I don't have any information there because there is no emission. It's the same with transmission. There is no transmission in the scene. So again, I don't need these render passes. Okay, so as you can see, here are our render passes. I'm just pressing 2 on the keyboard to enable them on the right hand side view. Now it's time to recreate them so it looks like the beauty pass on the left. So how do we do that? It's actually quite simple. All we're going to need is essentially one tool. Yes, one tool and one node will essentially help us recreate our whole beauty pass. And that node is a channel boolean. So you can add a channel boolean in a few ways. You can press Control space and type in BOL, which is a shortcut, and find channel boolean. And then you can press add, or you can go to the toolbar here and it says channel boolean and you can drag it down. It's entirely up to you, whichever you think's faster, whichever works for your workflow. So once you have a channel boolean, find diffuse direct, and we're going to need to plug the output of diffuse direct into the channel boolean. So find the white square and plug that into the channel boolean. It doesn't matter which way it is, just plug it into the channel boolean, then find diffuse indirect and plug that into the channel boolean. And then we're going to press 2 on the keyboard or drag the channel boolean to this window so we can see what the channel boolean is seeing here. If you remember the Blender file, it said that we need to add the diffuse direct and indirect and then multiply the diffuse color. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So on this channel boolean node on the right hand side, you can see it says operation. Change that to add and then change the alpha to do nothing. Perfect. Now you can see that we've successfully added these two together. And this is exactly what we want. Now we're going to need to multiply this channel boolean by the diffuse color. So all we're going to do is press Control C. We're going to copy the channel boolean. I'm going to drag it to the right. And then I'm going to grab the diffuse color and drag it into this channel boolean. Press 2 on my keyboard so I can see it on the right hand view. Then I'm going to click onto the channel boolean, change the operation from add to multiply. And as you can see, we've successfully recreated our diffuse passes. And again, if we take a look at the blend information, diffuse direct and indirect, we add them together, which is what we've done with this channel boolean. And then we multiply these two by the diffuse color. And that gives us our diffuse passes. So this is all of the diffuse passes. If you wanted to, you can select everything and then press Control G to group it. But I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to do it at the end. So next we're going to work with the glossy passes. So again, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to press 2 on my keyboard or drag it to this window so I can see my pass. And then I can either press Control spacebar and click channel boolean or drag the channel boolean tool from the toolbar here. Next, I'm going to grab the output of the glossy direct into the channel boolean, glossy indirect into the channel boolean. Then I'm going to view my channel boolean by pressing 2 on my keyboard onto the node. It looks a little bit dark. That's because we need to change the operation mode with the channel boolean to add from copy. Because again, if we take a look at the render information, you add the glossy direct, glossy indirect, and you multiply the color. You're starting to see a pattern here. So once we've added the glossy direct and glossy indirect and changed the operation to add, the alpha to do nothing, All we need to do is copy and paste this channel boolean. So press Ctrl C to copy it, Ctrl V to paste it. We're going to drag it to the right. Then we're going to get the output of the glossy color, put it into this channel boolean. I'm going to view this channel boolean by dragging it to this window and change the operation from add to multiply. And voila, just like that, we now have our glossy passes. Now, if you take a look at this Blender file again, you can see we need to add these two together to get our combined pass. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another channel boolean. So I'm going to press Control Space this time and type in BOL. That's the channel boolean. I'm going to press add. And if you click onto a node, if you're selected onto a node and you search, it will automatically connect whatever you've searched to that node. So since I was connected onto this channel boolean and I searched, it's already connected this node for me, which is fine. I'm then going to connect the last channel boolean node in our diffuse passes to the channel boolean that we just created. I'm going to view this. It looks crazy right now. That's because we haven't changed the operation from copy to add. And as you can see, we've successfully pretty much recreated our scene, but we don't have the background. Why is that? Well, we need to find the environment pass. So this is the environment pass here. And all we need to do is add another channel boolean node on top of that. So we're going to copy and paste the last channel boolean node that we had. Control C, Control V. Then we're going to drag the environment pass into the channel boolean. We're going to view this, and as you can see on the right hand side, this is our final recreated render passes and beauty pass, and on the left is our original image. And just to prove it, left hand side here it says composite combines. I'm going to drag it to this window, press 1 on my keyboards. As you can see, this is the pass. On the right hand side, this is the recreated pass, and that's essentially how you recreate your basic render passes from Blender into Davinci Resolve Fusion. However, this is only how to do it with the diffuse passes and the glossy passes environment, not necessarily emissions or volumes. But do not worry, within the next renders of this video, I'm going to show you how to work with those files. So as you can see, we've successfully recreated our beauty pass, and we can see we have all of these passes here. So we have the diffuse direct, diffuse indirect, diffuse color, glossy direct, glossy indirect, glossy color, and our environment. And because we have all of these split out, we can composite and manipulate these as we would do if we were in Blender. So say for example, we wanted to adjust the diffuse color. All I'll do is I'll click onto this layer, press Control Spacebar, and I'll type in CC for color corrector. I've now placed a color corrector node underneath the diffuse color. So on the right hand side, I'll show my final output, which is this last channel boolean, and I'll probably show my color corrected image on the left hand side. So I'll press 1. Now, for example, if I adjust my hues, you can see that I'm affecting the diffuse color. If I increase the lift or decrease the lift, I'm affecting just the diffuse color and that pass. If I manipulate and add a little bit of orange into the scene, you can see, let's go extreme, let's go green. You can see I'm affecting the diffuse color of the image. So you can literally manipulate this any which way you want. You can add any color corrector. You can add exponential glows, prism blurs, sun rays, you name it. I can go to the environment pass, type in light rays. You can see we now have a light ray. I can adjust the length, the brightness, the position, you name it. We basically have all of the creative control of using render passes within Fusion and all of Fusion's effects. So you can either press Control Spacebar and type in the effects, or at the top left corner here, this is the effects library. You can show you literally all of the tools within Davinci Resolve and Fusion, and there is quite a lot of them. Like, there's a ridiculous amount. But I'm going to show you how to recreate the other passes before we get like really deep into compositing techniques. Last thing, however, if you remember, we actually have a LUT on, which corrects the image. So if you were to export this at the moment, it would export looking like this because we have a viewer on. So to change it to the correct gamut, all we need to do is select onto the last channel boolean, press Control Space, type in gamut, press 2 on the keyboard to view it, and then change the output space to simplified sRGB, and as you can see, we have the corrected image. So after you completely finish all of your changes, take off the view LUT, add a gamut node, and change the output space to sRGB, and then you're done. But we're not finished with this video. We're going to recreate the render passes for an emission render, and then we're going to do the exact same thing with a render that has volume. So without further ado, let's get started. So if you remember, I'm going to click onto somewhere else on the screen, press Control Space, type in loader. Going to find the EXR that I want. We have this EXR. I'm going to drag it here. Going to make sure I re-enable the look. Perfect. Now I'm going to right click, go down to scripts, type in Split EXR. Press OK. It's going to load all the passes that I need. And I'm just going to drag down the passes that I need. So look, I'm going to go in order. See, it says glossy direct. That's fine. I'm going to need the emission. I'm going to need the diffuse direct. Glossy indirect, I'm going to need that. Fine, sure, I'll use that as a beauty. Diffuse color, I'm going to need that. I'll leave that at the end. Glossy color, yep, I'm going to need that. What else is here? Diffuse indirect. So right now we only really need the environment. Here we go, environment. So these are the passes that we're working with. Diffuse direct, diffuse indirect, diffuse color, glossy direct, glossy indirect, glossy color, emission, environment. So if you remember, what we're going to need to do is add a channel boolean and add and multiply these. So I'm going to go through this quickly. Hopefully you remember the steps, but we're going to go through it again. So this time I'm going to go to the toolbar. Again, it doesn't really matter. You can click onto the node and press Control Space and type in channel boolean. It's going to add a channel boolean. You're going to drag the diffuse direct and diffuse indirect into the channel boolean. Go to the channel boolean, drag it to the window so you can see it. Change the operation from copy to add and alpha to do nothing. Then Control C, Control V to copy and paste the channel boolean. Drag the diffuse color into the channel boolean. Press 2 to view it. Change the operation to multiply. Bang, we've successfully recreated our diffuse passes. Super quick, super simple, super easy. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the glossy direct. So I'm going to add a channel boolean. I'm going to drag it from the toolbar because it's faster. Drag that into the channel boolean. Drag the glossy indirect into the channel boolean. Click onto it, operation, add, alpha, do nothing. I'll view this. Control C, Control V, copy and paste it. Drag the glossy color into it, multiply. I'm going to view it. Okay. Next, we're going to need to add these two together. So I'm going to add another channel boolean. Drag the output of the diffuse passes. Drag the output of the glossy passes. View it. Operation, add. We successfully recreated the glossy and diffuse passes. Now we need to add another channel boolean. So I'm going to press Control C, Control V, and I'm going to include and I'm going to drag in the emission pass and I'm going to view it. And bang, as you can see, we have our emission pass. It's looking good. We need to add one more channel boolean. So Control C, Control V, and we're going to add the environment pass into it. And if I press 2 to view it, bang, you can see on the left is our beauty pass. And on the right is our recreated pass. And we have all of our diffuse passes here. All of our glossy passes here. We have our emission pass, which comes next. Then our environment pass I like to put last. And as you can see, we've successfully recreated our scene. Perfect. So now if we wanted to make a glow of this emission, what I'd probably do is I'd hover over to emission, press Control Spacebar. I'll type in glow and I'd find any of these glows. I like exponential glow because it looks kind of crazy. I'm going to press 1 so I see it on the left hand side, that specific effect. And I'm going to just increase the radius, bring down the gain ever so slightly. And this is looking, Going to press Control Spacebar after exponential glow and I'm going to type in light res. So we're really going to bring this effect in. So on the right is the final image. I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard so I can see just the light rays. I increase the length. I'm going to come from location. I'll bring it down. Bring down the brightness. I'm going to change the color to the same kind of color of the glow, which is a bluey color. Going to soften it. I'm going to bring down the brightness. And we have that, which is kind of crazy. It's not bad. And if I wanted to, I can add color corrector node after it. So Control Space, type in CC for color corrector. Then if I wanted to manipulate the hue of all of that, I could. Look at that. That's just wow. This is why we use render passes. This is incredible. I don't need to go back into Blender for this. And since this is slightly orange and red and not blue, we can adjust the diffuse passes. So on the left hand side, if I go to like my diffuse direct or my diffuse color, I'll go to my diffuse direct and I'm going to press Control Spacebar, click CC, use the color corrector node. And I'm just going to add a little bit of orange, red towards the scene. And on the right, you can see it blends in a lot more. Yeah, that works. I mean, we can spend a lot of time manipulating this. I could even go to like my diffuse color and add like a prism blur. Blur strap down. You can see we can actually go crazy. We can do a lot of things with this image. We can actually do a lot of things with this image. And again, it looks good because we have the view lot on. If we take it off, it looks crushed. So all we need to do at the end of this channel boolean node is Control Spacebar, type in gamut, right hand side, change the gamut output space from no change to simplified sRGB, view that, and bang, make sure you've taken off the view lot. This is our final output. If you wanted to save this, normally for Fusion videos, they say to add a saver node. If we do this within Davinci Resolve, it will just export this as an EXR. So the workaround I found is find the immediate output that you had when you created this file. So find immediate output. It'll be somewhere within your node network. And then connect the final output to the immediate out. Now if I go down to the edit tab within our Fusion, you can see we have our composited image here. And technically, since it's immediate out and it's in Fusion, I could do all of my other adjustments from the color page if I wanted to. Which is, I can add my LUTs, I can technically still do that within Fusion. But yeah, we need to do one more. We're almost done, guys. We need to do one more, and that's recreating the render passes with emission and volume. Because as you can see from the Blender file, it doesn't actually show you how to do volumes. It says direct, glossy, transmission, emission, environment, but where's the volume? It doesn't show you. Don't worry, have no fear, I'm going to show you. It's quite simple. It's literally, essentially the exact same steps. So we're going to type in control space, we're going to hit a loader node, I'm going to find the one I want. Remember correctly, it's the mesh to volume. This was the render that I created when I was, I'm going to use the view lot so I can see. This is the render I created when I was testing out the new volume to mesh and mesh to volume modifiers within Blender, and it's not bad. It's not a bad render. Okay, let's see how to work with this. So I'm going to right click, script, split EXR. Going to bring this window up. I'm going to press OK. Now I'm going to find all of the passes that I need. Yep, emission is here. Glossy and direct, we'll need that. Combined, that's our beauty pass. Glossy color, that comes after. Volume, indirect, we'll need that. Diffuse color, we'll need that. Volume direct, we'll need that. Combined, that's our beauty pass. Do we have any transmission? Let's see. Yeah, we have transmission. So we're going to bring that down. We'll bring that after our glossy. Transmission color, glossy direct. We'll bring that here. We don't have any subsurface. We have environment. Yep, we do. Diffuse direct. We'll bring that right to the top here. Okay, and diffuse indirect. Bang. So we have the diffuse passes here. The glossy passes here. Oh, we're still missing the transmission. We need to find a transmission. Transmission direct. Perfect. Transmission passes here. Volume passes here. Environment and emission. So I'm just going to press 2 quickly so I can see the thumbnails of each of the render passes. Just so it's easier for me to manipulate. Perfect. Okay. So let's work with it. We have all of these nodes here. Let's work with the image and recreate it. So what do? We'll start with the diffuse, of course. Let's grab a trailing boolean, drag it in, diffuse direct, diffuse indirect, right hand side, operation, add, alpha, do nothing, copy and paste. Diffuse color, drag that into the next channel boolean, change the operation to multiply. Press 2 to view the channel boolean. And we've recreated our diffuse passes. It looks kind of crazy, but I've recreated it. Great. Now we're going to do the exact same for our glossy passes. So add the channel boolean, glossy direct in, glossy indirect in. Operation, add, press 2 on the keyboard on the channel boolean to see what we're working with. Perfect. Alpha, do nothing. or it doesn't really matter if you don't do anything, if you don't change it at the moment. Control C, Control V, change the operation to multiply, add the glossy color into that, press 2 on the keyboard to view it, bang. Now we have our direct passes, our diffuse passes, and our glossy passes. We're going to do the exact same thing with the transmission, because as you see from the Blender documentation, it says the transmission is next, so we're going to do that next. Same story, Boolean, direct, indirect, add, press 2 to view it, we paste, multiply, add transmission color, press 2 to view it, successfully recreated it. Now we have volume, and as you can see, we have a volume direct, but we don't have any volume indirect. So what do? Essentially, we're going to add these together first, and then we're going to work with that. So we're going to add a channel boolean. We're going to add the last output of the channel boolean from the diffuse passes into this one, the last output for the glossy passes into this channel boolean. Press 2 to view it, change the operation to add alpha to do nothing, and as you can see, we have our diffuse passes and our glossy passes combined, but it still looks crazy. That's fine. Control C, Control V. Now we're going to add the output of our transmission, our last channel boolean, into this channel boolean here. Press 2 to view it. It's looking slightly better. Next, we're going to copy and paste this once more. In fact, for best practice, what I'll do is I'm going to add a channel boolean here, and I'm just going to add the volume direct and volume indirect, just so you know what you would be doing. You add them together, and that's what it would look like composited together if we had the direct, but we don't. Then we're going to add the boolean from the volume direct and the volume indirect pass into this channel boolean here. And as you can see, we've gone from this to that, and we have our volume directly composited within our image. Next, you can see we have our environment and our emission. I normally put the emission first and the environment last. So I'm going to copy and paste the channel boolean again, which already has the add operation. I'm going to add the emission, bang, press 2 on the keyboard to see it. Nice. Copy and paste once more. Add the environment, 2 on the keyboard to see it. And technically we've successfully recreated our render pass, but you can see it looks kind of crazy. Now, why is this? We're about to see. So I'm going to go out. I'm going to go back to edit mode. I'm going to go back into Fusion. I'm going to press 2 on the keyboard, and it's still messing about, which means we've messed up one of our render passes. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through our channel booleans to see, and I can see it's right here, this one here. I didn't change the operation from copy to add. If I manipulate this now, hit add, you can see we've recreated our render passes. So sometimes you might make a mistake. I just made one by going through really quickly. All you need to do is go through. It's probably a fault within your channel booleans. Make sure that it's add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. Then when it's your emissions and your environments, it's simply just add. Okay, perfect. So on the right hand side is our final composited image. On the left hand side is our beauty pass. This is the combined. As you can see, we've successfully recreated it. So now, for example, if we wanted to go to our volume, in fact, I'll show the volume on the left hand side, and I wanted to add a color corrector node and change the color of the volume of the smoke, I can do that now with compositing. This is what, oh, that blue is nice. And this is why we do compositing, so we have a lot more control with the parameters of our image without having to go back and re-render our image. So I can manipulate this, I can go to my emission, I can add a glow, exponential glow if I wanted to. See what that looks like. Does it look crazy? Yep, it looks a little bit crazy, but it's fine. You can see we have some sort of emission from the water. So I'm going to go to my glossy direct and indirect just to see if it's shining. Okay, fine. So I can add a glow to the glossy direct. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah. And now we have glow in our glossy direct. Glossy indirect, glossy color, diffuse direct. We can add color corrector nodes to any of these. We can manipulate the color, the hues if we wanted to. You can add light rays, prism blurs, you name it. There's a whole list of effects that we have here. Again, I'll probably make an in-depth tutorial about compositing techniques that you can do within Fusion, or maybe I'll compare Blender compositing with Fusion compositing. We can go over the nodes, but this primarily was a video to show you how to recreate your render passes if you have an emission, if you have volume, if you don't have either. And yeah, if you want to clean this up, you can group these. So what I would potentially do is, after I've created this huge mess, I'd select all the diffuse passes, press Ctrl G, F2 to rename it. I'm renaming this diffuse. Do the exact same thing with glossy. Highlight of the glossy passes, Ctrl G, F2, rename it glossy. Transmission is the exact same thing, Ctrl G, transmission. Then I'd probably leave the emission and the environment. Then I'd select this whole thing here and group this whole thing. And I'll call it the name of the render, so volume to mesh, and bang. So now if we open this, we can see we have our diffuse passes that we can reopen here, and it has all of these here. Our glossy passes that we can reopen, transmission passes, etc. And we can close it. If you want to ungroup it, just right click, and it says ungroup. Bang, it will ungroup the group that you've selected. So guys, that is it. That is how you successfully recreate your render passes within Davinci Resolve Fusion. Hopefully you like this video. Also, I almost forgot. That just reminded me, I almost forgot. So we still have the view layer on. So this, so this is what it would look like if we connect the media out, because I've just taken the viewer off. So again, what we need to do is select onto our last node, Control Space, Gamut, press F2, press 2 so we can see it. Change the output space to simplified sRGB, and then bang. So now we have our render correctly mapped and looking good. So anyway guys, hopefully this video was useful. If you liked it, let me know in the comments below. Do not subscribe, but I'm probably going to do another video about compositing techniques within Fusion and specific nodes that I like to use to composite my images. This was primarily just showing you how to recreate your render passes and your beauty passes within Davinci Resolve Fusion. Anyway guys, thank you for your time. This was a long one. Thank you for powering through it, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.